Captain Lee Taman watched the massive space station grow larger on his ship's main screen. Kepler Station floated in the darkness between stars, its metal surface covered in lights from a dozen different alien species. This was supposed to be a simple trade meeting. Humans had been part of the Galactic Confederation for 50 years now, and these monthly talks usually went smoothly. The human ship Harmony's Edge moved slowly toward the docking bay. Taman had commanded this vessel for 3 years, and his crew knew their jobs well. Behind him on the bridge, Dr. Park Soman checked her scientific equipment one more time. She was the ship's expert on alien biology, and her job was to make sure any new trade goods were safe for humans. "Captain, we're getting clearance to dock at Port 7, said his communications officer. The young woman's voice was calm and professional. Taman nodded and straightened his blue uniform. "Good, are you ready for another boring meeting?" he asked Somin with a small smile. Somin laughed and shook her head. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she carried a small bag of scientific tools. "I hope it's boring." "Boring means no problems." Next to her, Kim Jae-hyun adjusted his military dress uniform. As their security advisor, he always looked serious during these diplomatic visits. His job was to watch for threats and keep the human delegation safe. The ship docked smoothly with the station. Mechanical arms extended from the station to grip their vessel, and the airlock systems connected with a soft hiss. Taman led his small team through the ship's corridors toward the exit. They walked through the station's main hallways, passing aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some looked almost human with 2 arms and 2 legs. Others were completely different with multiple limbs or strange skin colors. The air smelled of strange spices and recycled atmosphere from dozens of different worlds. Children from various species played in the station's gardens, while their parents conducted business. Merchants sold exotic goods from across the galaxy. Everything seemed peaceful and normal, just like it had been for 50 years of human membership in the Confederation. The meeting room was large and circular, with seats arranged around a holographic display table. The walls were covered with symbols from different alien cultures, representing the unity of the Confederation. Large windows showed the stars outside, reminding everyone that they were all part of the same galaxy. Chancellor Vex Thara was already waiting for them when they arrived. The alien leader was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Her species, the hegemony, controlled most of the Confederation's military and political power. She had been in charge of human relations for the past 10 years. "Welcome, humans," Vex Thara said in perfect English. Her translator device made her voice sound musical and pleasant. "Please sit. We have much to discuss today." Taman sat across from her at the curved table with Soman and Jae-hyun on either side. The chairs were designed to accommodate different alien body types, so they were a bit uncomfortable for humans. But that was normal. "Thank you, Chancellor," Taman said politely. "We're ready to review the trade agreements for the next quarter. Our colonies are producing more food than expected, and we have surplus metals from the mining operations on Kepler 452b. But Vex Thara held up one of her 4 hands. Her expression was different today, more serious than usual. "Actually, Captain Lee, today we need to discuss something far more important than trade. We need to talk about your species' future in the galaxy." Something cold settled in Taman's stomach. In 50 years of human-alien relations, no one had ever talked about their future in such serious terms. "Our future, Chancellor?" The alien leader smiled, showing teeth that seemed too sharp for friendly conversation. "Yes. You see, the Confederation Council has been discussing humanity's development over the past 5 decades. We've reached some important conclusions." Soman leaned forward slightly, her scientific curiosity overcoming her diplomatic training. "What kind of conclusions?" "Integration conclusions," Vex Thara said simply. "Your species has grown remarkably during your time with us. You now control 47 star systems and have established colonies on over 200 worlds. This growth rate is quite impressive for such a young spacefaring civilization." Jae-hyun spoke for the first time, his voice carefully neutral. "We've always followed Confederation guidelines for expansion. Every new colony was approved by the proper authorities." "Oh yes, of course," the Chancellor agreed. "You've been very good about following the rules. But the Council has decided that humanity has grown enough. Your 50 years as provisional members were always meant as a trial period. Now it's time for the next step." Taman felt his heart beating faster. "What kind of next step?" "Full integration into the Confederation structure," Vex Thara explained. Your military forces will be absorbed into our peacekeeping fleets. Your colonies will be governed by experienced Confederation administrators. Your people will learn to serve the greater good of galactic civilization under proper guidance. The room went completely silent. Taman stared at the alien leader, trying to process what she had just said. After 50 years of partnership and cooperation, the Confederation was announcing that they planned to take control of human space. That wasn't part of our original agreement when we joined the Confederation, Taman said. Slowly, Vexthera waved one of her hands dismissively. Agreements evolve as circumstances change, Captain. You humans are still very young as a spacefaring species. You need guidance from those who have been traveling the stars for millennia. The Confederation has brought peace and prosperity to thousands of worlds. We know what's best for developing civilizations. And if we refuse this integration? Jaehyun asked quietly. The Chancellor's smile grew wider and somehow less friendly. Why would you refuse such an honor? But to answer your question, the process has already begun. We've positioned peacekeeping fleets around your territory to ensure a smooth transition. We've mapped your defense installations and cataloged your resources. We've been preparing for this moment for quite some time. Dr. Somin had been running quiet scans with her biological sensors throughout the meeting. Now she touched Taman's arm gently and whispered urgently in Korean, Captain, I'm detecting biological agents. Several of the aliens in this room are carrying viruses specifically designed to attack human immune systems. Taman's blood turned to ice. Not only were they being betrayed politically, but the aliens had brought biological weapons to a diplomatic meeting. This wasn't about peaceful integration anymore. This was about making sure humans couldn't resist. Is there something wrong, Captain? Vexthera asked, noticing their whispered conversation. Her tone was still pleasant, but her eyes had grown cold. Taman looked directly into those alien eyes. Chancellor, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. You're telling us that the Confederation has decided to take control of all human territory and military forces, whether we agree or not. That's correct. For the good of galactic peace and stability. You've positioned military fleets around our space without asking our permission. Also correct. We wanted to be prepared for any difficulties. And you've brought biological weapons designed to kill humans to this diplomatic meeting. The Chancellor's pleasant expression didn't change at all. We prefer to think of them as insurance policies, Captain. Sometimes civilizations need encouragement to accept what's best for them. Taman felt a cold anger building in his chest. For 50 years, humans had worked honestly with the Confederation. They had followed every rule, honored every agreement, and tried to be good galactic citizens. They had contributed food, resources, and knowledge to the common good, and this was how they were repaid. Chancellor, he said very quietly, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Yes, Captain. She leaned forward slightly as if expecting him to accept defeat. Withdraw all Confederation forces from human space immediately. Remove your biological weapons from this station. Cancel whatever integration plans you've made. Do this within 24 hours or face the consequences. Vexthera actually laughed out loud. Several other alien diplomats around the table joined in, their various species producing different sounds of amusement. Consequences? Captain Lee, your entire species has perhaps 200 warships scattered across 47 star systems. The Confederation has over 10,000 vessels. What consequences could you possibly threaten us with? Taman stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. Jaehyun and Somin stood with him, presenting a united front. That, Chancellor, would be your mistake to find out. Captain Lee, Vexthera called as they walked toward the door. You have one standard week to reconsider this foolish position. After that, the integration process begins whether you cooperate or not. I suggest you use that time wisely. Taman stopped at the door and turned back one final time. Chancellor, in human culture, we have an old saying. Don't mistake kindness for weakness. You and your Confederation are about to learn exactly what that means. The three humans left the meeting room and walked quickly back to their ship. The station's corridors seemed different now, more threatening. Every alien they passed could be an enemy. Every friendly face could be hiding hostile intentions. 3 months had passed since the meeting at Kepler Station. Admiral Choi Minho stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching the green and blue dots on his tactical displays. Each dot represented a ship moving through space around Earth's solar system. Most of them belonged to humans, but some did not. Admiral, we have another report from the Outer Patrol. said Commander Nara as she walked up to his command station. She had just returned from a secret mission to the edge of the solar system. Her uniform was wrinkled and she looked tired, but her eyes were alert. "What did you find out there?" Choi asked. Nara pressed a button on the control panel, and a holographic image appeared above the table. It showed dozens of alien ships floating in space near the outer planets. "They're not hiding anymore, sir. The Confederation has built a staging area just past Neptune's orbit." The Admiral studied the images carefully. He could see construction platforms, supply ships, and warships arranged in perfect military formations. "How many ships?" "At least 300 so far, with more arriving every day," Nara replied. "And Admiral, we detected something else. Biological research vessels. They're not just planning to invade us. They want to make sure we can never fight back." On Earth, President Han Kyung-soo sat in his office in Seoul, reading reports from intelligence agents across human space. The news was getting worse every day. He looked up as his assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, Intelligence Director Shin Yeji is here to see you." "Send her in." Yeji entered the room, carrying a tablet computer filled with classified information. She was young for such an important job, but she was also the smartest person the government had when it came to understanding alien behavior. "Mr. President, we need to talk about what we've discovered," she said, sitting down across from his desk. "How bad is it?" "Worse than we thought." Yeji activated the tablet's holographic display. Images of human colonies appeared in the air, with red markers indicating problem areas. "We've found Confederation agents on 17 different worlds. Some have been there for over 20 years. President Han leaned back in his chair. 20 years? They've been planning this since before we even built half of our colonies. It gets worse, sir. We intercepted secret communications between Confederation commanders. They don't see us as partners who made a mistake. They see us as an invasive species that has spread too quickly across the galaxy." The president stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the city below. Seoul was peaceful and busy, with people going about their daily lives. They had no idea that their entire civilization was under threat. "What else?" he asked. "The biological weapons we detected at Kepler Station were just the beginning. They've developed viruses that target human DNA specifically. If they decide to use them, they could wipe out our entire species without firing a single shot." President Han turned back to face her. "Then we need to discuss Protocol Omega." Yeji nodded seriously. Protocol Omega was humanity's most secret defense plan. Most people in the government didn't even know it existed. Back on Luna Station, Admiral Choi was meeting with his top military commanders. The conference room was filled with officers from across human space, their faces grim as they discussed the situation. "Status report from Jupiter sector," Choi said. Captain Oh Tae-hyung appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from his ship near Jupiter's moons. "Ghost Fleet Alpha is in position and ready. All stealth systems are working perfectly. The aliens have no idea we're here." "Good. What about the asteroid belt?" Commander Bae Jiwoo's voice came through the speakers from her command post on Ceres. "Ghost Fleet Beta is holding position among the mining platforms. We've finished installing the hidden weapons systems on all major asteroids. The particle beam arrays are charged and ready." Admiral Choi smiled for the first time in weeks. For 50 years, humanity had been building something the aliens knew nothing about. Every mining station, every research outpost, every communication satellite had a secret military purpose. The Confederation thought they knew all about human defenses. They were completely wrong. "Excellent work, everyone. What about our deep space scouts?" Captain Song Minji's image appeared on another screen. He was broadcasting from somewhere far outside the solar system, using a heavily encrypted channel. "Admiral, I've been watching the main Confederation fleet. They're still assembling ships from across the galaxy, but they're moving faster than we expected. Intelligence suggests they want to finish this quickly to discourage other species from getting ideas about independence." The Admiral nodded. He had expected this. The Confederation ruled through fear. They couldn't allow humans to successfully resist them, or other conquered species might start their own rebellions. Meanwhile, diplomatic attaché Lim Dong-wook was making one final attempt at peace talks. He met with Chancellor Vexithara at a neutral station in empty space between human and Confederation territory. The meeting room was small and cold, with no decorations or comfortable furniture. "The Terran Republic has considered your proposal," Dong-wook said formally. "We reject it completely." Vexithara's forearms moved in a gesture that meant amusement in her culture. Captain Lee's dramatic exit from Kepler Station was quite entertaining. But surely your leaders have realized the hopelessness of your position by now. What we've realized is that you never intended to treat us as equals. You've been planning to conquer us since the day we joined the Confederation. Conquer is such an ugly word, the Chancellor said. We prefer integration. It's much more civilized. What you call it doesn't change what it is. You rule other species through military force and biological weapons. That's not a confederation. That's an empire. The alien leader's pleasant expression faded. Your species has always been too independent for the good of galactic stability. Do you know what happens to species that refuse to accept guidance from their betters? Enlighten me. They become extinct. Vexithara leaned forward across the table. We've given you time to reconsider. That time is now over. The integration process begins in 72 hours, whether you cooperate or not. Dongwook stood up from his chair. Then you've made your choice and we've made ours. As he left the station and returned to his ship, Dongwook sent a coded message to Earth. The final negotiations had failed. The Confederation was determined to destroy human independence no matter what the cost. On Earth, President Han received the message during an emergency session of the Terran Council. Representatives from every human world sat in the assembly hall, their faces serious as they listened to the reports from across human space. Citizens of the Terran Republic, President Han began, speaking into cameras that would broadcast his words to every human colony and space station. For 50 years we have worked peacefully with other species in this galaxy. We have honored our agreements, respected alien cultures, and tried to be good neighbors to all. He paused, making sure his words would be clearly understood. But we have learned that our trust was misplaced. The Galactic Confederation never saw us as partners or equals. They saw us as a problem that needed to be controlled. They have positioned military fleets around our territory without permission. They have brought biological weapons specifically designed to kill humans. They have placed spy networks on our worlds and planned our conquest for decades. President Han's voice grew stronger and more determined. Therefore, I am authorizing Admiral Choi to activate Protocol Omega. As of this moment, the Terran Republic hereby establishes a 100 light-year exclusion zone around all human territory. Any Confederation vessel found within this zone after 72 hours will be considered an act of war. The message was broadcast on every frequency humans could reach, transmitted to every alien embassy and diplomatic station in known space. Within hours, it had spread throughout the galaxy, reaching worlds that had been conquered centuries ago. The Confederation's response was swift and predictable. Chancellor Vexithara announced that the 1st Battle Squadron of the Confederation Navy would proceed directly to Earth to restore order and begin the integration process. Immediately, Admiral Choi received this news while standing in Luna Station's observation deck, looking out at the stars through the transparent aluminum windows. His aide approached with the latest intelligence reports. Sir, the Confederation is sending 500 ships toward our solar system. They'll arrive in 71 hours. For the first time in months, Admiral Choi smiled. Perfect timing. Signal all ghost fleets to move to final positions, and tell Dr. Kang that her special projects are about to get their first real test. Throughout the solar system, humanity began revealing the defenses they had been building in secret for 50 years. Mining stations transformed into weapons platforms. Research outposts activated hidden military systems. Communication satellites became coordination nodes for the most advanced defense network ever created. The Confederation fleet approached Earth, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. They had no idea that they were flying into a trap 50 years in the making. The humans had been preparing for this exact moment since the day they first met alien civilizations. As the enemy ships drew closer, human crews across the solar system made their final preparations. The aliens thought they knew everything about human technology and capabilities. The news of the Confederation defeat traveled across the galaxy faster than light itself. On distant worlds that had been conquered centuries ago, alien species whispered about the impossible victory of the humans. Some dared to hope that the age of Confederation rule might finally be ending, but on the imperial capital world of Hegemon Prime, Emperor Zaltharok was not whispering. He was screaming loud enough to shake the walls of his massive throne room. 500 ships, he roared at the military commanders standing before his throne. 500 of our finest warships destroyed by a handful of primitive mammals. The Emperor was enormous even by the standards of his species, standing almost 3 meters tall with mechanical parts covering half his body. He had ruled the Confederation for over 200 years, conquering dozens of species and expanding his empire across thousands of star systems. Never in all that time had he faced such a complete defeat. Chancellor Vexithera knelt on the floor before the Emperor's throne. She was one of the few survivors of the battle at Earth, and her once proud uniform was torn and dirty. She trembled as she spoke. "Your Imperial Majesty, the humans were not what our intelligence reports told us. They have been hiding their true military strength for decades. Their technology is far more advanced than we believed possible." "Silence," the Emperor bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls. "I don't want excuses. I want these humans destroyed." Grand Admiral Kethvar stepped forward carefully. He was an old being whose people had been among the first conquered by the Confederation. Like many of the Empire's military leaders, he served only because his family was being held prisoner. "Your Majesty," he said in a quiet voice, "perhaps we should consider making peace with the humans. If their defenses are as strong as the survivors report." The Emperor's mechanical arm moved faster than the eye could follow, striking the Grand Admiral and sending him flying across the room. "There will be no peace. No species has ever successfully fought the Confederation and lived. The humans will be made an example that the entire galaxy will remember." On Earth, General An Ji-young was working day and night to prepare for what everyone knew was coming. The victory at Earth had bought them time, but intelligence reports from across the galaxy suggested that the Confederation was gathering their full military power for revenge. "How many people can we evacuate from the outer colonies?" she asked her staff during an emergency planning meeting. "We can move about 60% of the frontier settlements before the enemy fleet arrives," replied her logistics coordinator. "But the core worlds and major industrial centers will have to stay and fight." General An nodded grimly. She understood the numbers. The Confederation controlled thousands of worlds and had access to millions of ships. Humanity had dozens of colonies and perhaps 1,000 vessels, even counting their hidden fleet. In a direct fight, the mathematics were hopeless. But humanity had never planned to fight directly. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a laboratory that didn't appear on any official maps, Dr. Li Wujin was putting the finishing touches on humanity's most desperate plan. He had been working on this project in secret for over 10 years, preparing for exactly this situation. "Are you absolutely certain this will work?" asked his assistant, Dr. Kim Hyeram, as she checked the final calculations on her computer. "It has to work," Li replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Because if it doesn't, there won't be a human species left to learn from our mistakes." The project was called Liberation Protocol, and it represented humanity's most ambitious and dangerous gamble. For years, human intelligence agents had been studying the Confederation's greatest weakness. Most of their military forces were made up of conquered species fighting against their will. Every alien ship in the Confederation fleet contained soldiers and crew members whose worlds had been destroyed, whose families were being held hostage, whose minds were controlled by electronic implants. They served the Empire not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. Dr. Li's team had developed a way to give them that choice. The Empire's control systems all depend on a central communication network, Kim Hyeram explained to the assembled military commanders in the underground briefing room. Every neural control device in their fleet receives orders from the same source. If we can disrupt that network, every control implant will stop working at the same time. "And then what happens?" asked Admiral Choi. "Then," General An said with a cold smile, "1 million enslaved soldiers suddenly remember who they were before the Confederation conquered them, and they remember who has been keeping their families prisoner." Captain Song Min-jae had returned from another dangerous reconnaissance mission deep into Confederation space. His stealth ship had traveled farther into enemy territory than any human vessel before, gathering intelligence on the Empire's preparations for war. "Admiral," he reported to the command staff gathered in Luna Station's main briefing room, "they're not just sending another fleet, they're sending everything they have." He activated the room's holographic display system, showing images of the massive military force assembling in Confederation space. Thousands of ships from dozens of different species stretched across multiple star systems, representing the combined military might of half the galaxy. How many ships total? Admiral Choi asked quietly. Over 10,000 confirmed warships, Song replied. Planet-destroying weapons, space-bending technology, biological warfare systems, and weapons we don't even have names for. They've gathered ships from every corner of their empire. When will they arrive? 6 weeks, maybe less if they push their engines harder. The room fell completely silent as everyone absorbed what this meant. Even with all their hidden defenses and secret weapons, humanity couldn't possibly fight 10,000 ships using conventional tactics. President Ryu Daeho had taken over the government after President Han collapsed from stress-related health problems. Now he stood before the cameras that would broadcast his words to every human colony and space station across the galaxy. Citizens of Earth and all human worlds, he began, his voice steady and determined. We face the greatest threat in our species' history. The Galactic Confederation has assembled the largest military force ever created, with one purpose: to completely destroy human civilization. He paused, looking directly into the camera lens. They want to make an example of us, to show every other species in the galaxy what happens when you dare to resist their rule. They plan to erase us from history so completely that no one will ever again have the courage to stand up to tyranny. President Ryu's voice grew stronger as he continued. But they have made a terrible mistake. They believe that fear makes them powerful. They believe that enslaving others gives them strength. They are about to learn that true power comes not from controlling others, but from the courage to fight for freedom. The message was transmitted on every frequency humans could reach, sent to every corner of known space. Within hours it was being discussed in secret meetings on 1,000 conquered worlds. Therefore, the president continued, I hereby declare a state of total war against the Galactic Confederation Empire. We will not surrender. We will not negotiate. We will not compromise with tyranny. He looked directly into the camera for his final statement. To the enslaved species serving in the Confederation fleet, we know you fight against your will. We know your families are prisoners, your minds controlled by machines. When your fleet arrives at our solar system, we will give you something your rulers never have. The chance to choose freedom. As the message spread across the galaxy, secret resistance groups on dozens of worlds began preparing for what they hoped would be their final battle against the Empire. The humans had done the impossible once by defeating a Confederation fleet. Now they were promising something even more impossible, to break the chains that held half the galaxy in slavery. Emperor Zaltharok received a recording of President Ryu's speech and flew into another rage, destroying furniture and walls with his mechanical arms. They dare to threaten my slaves? He screamed. They think they can turn my own forces against me? I will personally burn every human world to ash. But in the engine rooms and crew quarters of the assembling Confederation fleet, enslaved soldiers and forced pilots listened to the human message and allowed themselves to hope for the first time in generations. The final battle was coming, and it would be fought not just with weapons and ships, but with the most powerful force in the universe, the desire to be free. The largest fleet in the history of the galaxy appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a metal storm covering the stars. Over 10,000 ships stretched across space in perfect battle formation, their hulls painted with the symbols of 100 different conquered species forced to serve the Confederation Empire. Emperor Zaltharok stood on the command bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion, a vessel so massive it looked like a small moon floating in space. Around him, his officers prepared for what they believed would be the final destruction of human resistance. Signal all fleet commanders, the Emperor ordered, his mechanical voice echoing through the ship's communication systems. Today we make an example that the galaxy will never forget. Every human world will burn. Every human station will be destroyed. No trace of their species will remain. But deep inside Saturn's largest moon, Admiral John Taeyon watched the approaching enemy fleet with calm determination. The command center of Titan Base was hidden beneath kilometers of ice and rock, invisible to enemy sensors. Around her, human officers coordinated the defense of their home system, for what everyone knew would be the last time. All ghost fleets report battle ready, said her tactical officer, monitoring secure communications from across the solar system. Jupiter defense platforms are fully charged and locked on target, reported another officer. Liberation protocols ready for immediate deployment, added Dr. Nam Yoongi from his science station. Admiral John nodded slowly. For 6 weeks, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Now it was time to show the galaxy what the word freedom really meant. "Begin the demonstration," she ordered quietly. Across the solar system, what looked like Saturn's beautiful rings suddenly revealed their deadly secret. Massive chunks of ice and rock began moving toward the Confederation fleet at incredible speed, guided by hidden machines that had been disguised as simple mining equipment for decades. The first impacts hit the enemy ships before they could react. Entire vessels disappeared in bright flashes as pieces of Saturn's rings, moving at nearly the speed of light, tore through their armor like it was paper. Emperor Zaltharok's tactical displays filled with damage reports as hundreds of ships took critical hits in the first few seconds. "How is this possible?" the Emperor demanded, his voice shaking with rage. "They're using a planetary ring system as a weapon." But that was only the beginning. Dr. Nam activated humanity's most terrifying creation, a network of artificial black holes positioned throughout the solar system, connected by space-bending tunnels that allowed humans to redirect energy anywhere they wanted. When the Confederation fleet opened fire with their planet-destroying weapons, expecting to overwhelm Earth's defenses through pure destructive power, they discovered something impossible. Their own attacks were being turned back against them through holes in space itself. Energy beams that should have burned Earth to ash instead emerged from nowhere to strike Confederation ships. Missiles fired at human targets came out of empty space to destroy alien vessels. The Empire's greatest weapons had become humanity's defense system. "Sir, their entire solar system has been turned into a weapon," reported the Emperor's science officer in amazement. "They've made weapons out of black holes, planetary rings, asteroid belts, and space itself." Commander Seo Ji-hoon piloted his small stealth ship through the chaos of the battle, heading directly toward the center of the enemy fleet. His mission was the most important of the entire war, to activate the Liberation Protocol, device that would free millions of enslaved soldiers. "Approaching the target zone," he reported to Admiral A. John over the quantum communication system, beginning transmission of the liberation frequency. The device Dr. Lee had created was no bigger than a briefcase, but it contained the most powerful transmitter ever built. It sent out a special signal designed to shut down the electronic control devices that the Confederation used to force conquered species to obey orders. As the signal spread through the enemy fleet, something amazing began to happen. On ship after ship, enslaved soldiers suddenly stopped following orders. The control machines in their heads simply turned off. For the first time in years or decades, they could think their own thoughts and make their own choices. A Korvaxi warrior on a Confederation battleship looked around the bridge in confusion as his mind became clear. He remembered his homeworld burning, his family killed, his people enslaved, and he remembered who was responsible for it all. "Brothers," he shouted to his fellow crew members in their own language. "We are free. The humans have broken our chains." Similar scenes played out on thousands of ships throughout the Confederation fleet. Species that had been forced to fight for the Empire suddenly remembered who they really were and who their real enemies had always been. Emperor Zaltharok watched in horror as his own ships began attacking each other. "This cannot be happening. The control systems are impossible to break. No technology in the galaxy can do this." "The humans found a way, Your Majesty," his science officer reported with fear in his voice. "They've turned our own slaves against us. Half the fleet is in open rebellion." The tide of battle changed completely as enslaved species across the Confederation fleet remembered their hatred for their oppressors. Ships that had been attacking Earth suddenly turned their weapons on Imperial command vessels. Entire battle groups switched sides in the middle of the fighting. Captain Moon Ga-young commanded the human flagship Terra's Defiance as it moved through the chaos toward the Emperor's massive vessel. The final battle of the war would be decided by a direct fight between the two commanders. "Emperor Zaltharok," she broadcast on all communication frequencies as her ship approached the Eternal Dominion. "This is Captain Moon Ga-young of the Terran Republic. I'm offering you one chance to surrender and end this war peacefully." The Emperor's response was to fire every weapon his giant ship had directly at the human vessel. But Terra's Defiance was protected by humanity's most advanced defensive technology. The Emperor's attacks were absorbed, redirected through space tunnels, or simply bounced off improved armor. "You cannot defeat me," Zaltharok screamed across the communication channels. "I have conquered 1,000 worlds. I'm the master of half the galaxy. You were never a master." Captain Moon replied in a calm voice. You were just a bully with bigger weapons, and bullies always fall when people stop being afraid of them. The battle between the two flagships continued while around them. The Confederation fleet destroyed itself from within. Species that had been enemies for centuries worked together against their common oppressor. The Empire's system of fear and control collapsed in a matter of hours. On the Emperor's homeworld of Hegemon Prime, citizens watched their communication screens in amazement as reports came in from across the galaxy. Conquered worlds that had been silent for generations were declaring their independence. The seemingly invincible empire was falling apart. As the Eternal Dominion began to break apart under attack from human weapons and rebellious alien ships, Emperor Zaltharok made one final desperate attempt to claim victory. If I cannot rule the galaxy, he broadcast to all ships, then I will destroy it completely. He tried to activate his ship's ultimate weapon, a device that could tear apart the basic structure of space and time itself. But as the weapon powered up, something unexpected happened. The crew of his own ship, finally free from their control implants, turned on their emperor. Led by Grand Admiral Kethvar, whose people had suffered under imperial rule for centuries, they took control of the ultimate weapon and pointed it at the emperor himself. This is for every world you destroyed, Kethvar said as he prepared to fire. For every family you murdered, for every dream you crushed under your rule. Emperor Zaltharok's final scream was cut short as his own weapon erased him from existence. As news of the Emperor's death spread throughout the battle zone, the remaining Confederation forces began surrendering immediately. Without their leader and with their control systems broken, the Empire's military power collapsed completely. The war ended not with a great explosion, but with millions of voices across the galaxy shouting the same word in 100 different languages: freedom. 3 months later, representatives from hundreds of species gathered on Earth for the first meeting of the new Galactic Alliance. President Baek Sung-ho stood before the assembly in a hall specially built to accommodate dozens of different alien body types. Citizens of the galaxy, he began. Today marks the end of an age of tyranny and the beginning of an age of freedom. The Galactic Confederation Empire no longer exists. In its place, we create a true alliance based on cooperation, not conquest. A representative from the Korvaxi homeworld stood up. What promise do we have that humanity will not become the new empire? President Beck smiled. Because that's not who we are. The Terran Republic hereby makes this promise to every species in the galaxy. No world will ever again be conquered for its resources. No people will ever again be enslaved for someone else's benefit. No species will ever again be forced to serve another. He gestured to the diverse crowd of alien representatives. This is our final warning to anyone who might think about returning to the old ways. The age of empires is over. Any species that tries to dominate others will face the combined resistance of all free peoples.